this lesson, you're going to learn how to solve a quadratic equation now by factoring. I listed the steps to the right. We're going to use these steps and we're going to do some example problems. Previously, the problems were already factored for us, and we just said we basically did only step 3 and 4. We set each factor equal to 0 and we solved the resulting equations. Now we're going to do all 4 steps, or just 2, 3, and 4, depending upon if one needs to be done or not. So let's go ahead and look at a couple examples. Let's start with 1. Example number 1, we're going to do x squared plus 7x plus 6 equals 0. So my first step says to get a 0 on one side of the equation. That's already done, so step 1 is done. Now we go to step 2, which says factor completely. That means I'm going to take this x squared plus 7x plus 6, I'm going to factor it. Now, if you remember your factoring steps, you should realize that, oh hey, x squared plus 7x plus 6, that's a trinomial. I'll use my trinomial factoring skills. Okay. Oh, the leading coefficient is just 1, so I'm going to just go ahead and make my t-chart. I got to remember what adds to give me 7, but multiplies to give me 6. So what two numbers add to give me 7, but multiply to give me 6? And the numbers I'm getting is 6 times 1. 6 times 1 is 6. 6 plus 1 is 7. So when I go over here and I factor completely, I'm going to say x plus 6 times x plus 1. That equals 0. Step 2 is done. Now I'm going to go ahead and look, and I'm going to say, okay, set each factor containing the variable equal to 0. Okay, so this is like we did before. So first equation, x plus 6 equals 0. X plus 1 equals 0. Go ahead and solve both equations. Let's subtract 6 from both sides of this one. X equals negative 6. Subtract 1 from both sides over here. X equals negative 1. So I got negative 6, negative 1. Therefore, my solution is x equals negative 6 or x equals negative 1. Number 2. In number 2, we are going to do x squared plus 21 equals 10x. So let's go ahead and follow my first step. It says get a 0 on one side of the equation. So if you notice here, I got x squared plus 21 on the left, 10x on the right. I'm going to move all my terms to the right, or I'm sorry, to the left, so that way I have 0 at the end. So to do that, I need to get rid of this 10x. So I'm going to subtract 10x from both sides. Now 10x minus 10x is 0, so I'm going to do 0 on this side. But if I look over here, there's no just x term, so there's no term to combine it with. So I'm going to rewrite it, and I'm not going to combine it, I'm going to write it out long. So there's x squared. Usually we have, the minus 10x in the middle, because the x term is in the middle, plus 21. Now I have x squared minus 10x plus 21 equals 0. Step 1 is done. Step 2, factor completely. Again, this is a trinomial, so I'm going to go ahead and make my t-chart over here. Got to think of something that adds to give me negative 10, but multiplies to give me 21. So off the bat, I'm thinking 3 times 21. I'm sorry, I don't know why I said that. 3 times 7 is 21. But 3 plus 7 is positive 10, not negative 10. However, a negative times a negative is a positive, so a negative 3 times a negative 7 would make a positive 21, and a negative 3 plus a negative 7 would be a negative 10. So those are my factors. So I'll go ahead and write it out. Let's start with this. We got x minus 3, x minus 7 equals 0. Step 2 is done. Set each factor containing the variable equal to 0. So I got x minus 3 equals 0, x minus 7 equals 0. Step 3 is done. Now step 4, solve. So my final answer is x equals 3 or x equals 7. I need both though. And we got negative x squared minus 10x equals 25. Step 1 says get a 0 on one side of the equation. So again, I have 25 over here. I don't want it, so I'm going to subtract whatever's over here from both sides. And that's, again, I can't combine all these. I can't do negative x squared minus 10x. I can't minus 25 from that. So I'm just going to write it out side by side. And usually you have the number, well, all the time, you'll have the number, the constant, last, the number without a variable, and then equals 0. Step 1 is complete. Step 2 says factor completely. So again, I'm going to factor this. This time I have a leading coefficient of negative 1. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the slip and slide method. Multiply my negative 1 by negative 25. And I'm going to rewrite my equation as x squared minus 10x plus 25. And I'm just worried about this right now, so I'm factoring that out. So I'm going to make my little t-chart. What adds to give, or multiplies to give me 25, but adds to give me negative 10. Off the bat, 5 times 5 gives me 25, and they both have to be negatives for it to add to be a negative 10. So I'm going to write x minus 5, x minus 5. Now, since we did the slip and slide, I'm going to have to do the slide part. So the last step is I got to divide both these parts by negative 1. Since I multiplied at the beginning, negative 1 times the negative 25, I have to divide by the negative 1 now. That's going to give me x plus 5 times x plus 5. So step 2 is done. Step 3 says set each factor containing a variable equal to 0. If you notice, I have two equations that are the exact same, so they're going to give me the exact same answer. So when I subtract 5 from both sides for both of these, it's just going to be x equals negative 5. So in this case, I do not have two answers. Because they're both the same, I only have one answer, and that's negative 5. So my final answer is x equals negative 5. Remember, a quadratic formula usually has two answers, but it could have one and it can have none technically. So it all depends. So we're going to do example number 4. And in this example, we're going to have x squared minus 36 equals 0. So step 1 says, get a 0 on one side of the equation. Check, it's done. I didn't have to do anything. Step 1, it was already done for me. Factor completely. So looking here, I got x squared minus 36. I only have two terms. Because I only have two terms, I think, can I factor two terms? Yes, if it's difference of squares. So that depends. This first term, x squared, can I take the square root? Yes, that's x. X times x is x squared, so the square root of x squared is x. Alright, can I take the square root of 36? Yes, again. 36 is 6 times 6. The square root of 36 is 6. So I can factor using the difference of squares, because I can square root both terms and they have a minus in between. So my final answer for factoring would be x plus 6, x minus 6, and that equals 0. Step 2 is done. Now let's go ahead and look at step 3. We're going to set each factor containing a variable equal to 0. So x plus 6 equals 0, x minus 6 equals 0, and step 3 is done. Last step, solve for the resulting equation. Alright, so minus 6 from both sides on this one, add x equals negative 6, add 6 to this one to get rid of it. I got x equals 6. So my final answer is x equals negative 6 or x equals 6. All done. That was solving a quadratic equation by factoring.